Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, directed by Gil Kenan, stars Paul Rudd, Mckenna Grace, Dan Aykroyd, among many others. The film follows the events of Ghostbusters Afterlife as both Ghostbusters, new and old, have to defend New York against a ghost that has the power to freeze people by scaring them to death. I enjoyed Afterlife. I thought it was definitely a breath of fresh air, especially since the only new Ghostbusters content we had since then was the 2016 Ghostbusters film. We all know how that went. So it was definitely reassuring to see that the franchise seemed to have been in better hands, especially since that movie was directed by Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman. This film, however, unfortunately has a common sequel problem by not being as good as the first film. There are many characters in this film to the point where it almost feels overbloated. Mckenna Grace is really charming here. I think in recent years it's one of the most perfect casting choices to make her a descendant of Harold Ramis's character. From the look to her mannerism, she's really able to convey this pretty well. Paul Rudd essentially acts the same way he does in a lot of his films, but he is just as charming too, and occasionally has some funny lines. He has a pretty decent arc in the movie too, but despite that, there isn't much else to his character. Finn Wolfhard isn't given much to do in this movie at all either. I don't exactly like him as an actor, but the writers just don't give his character much to work with at all. There's some new characters in this too. One that I was pretty excited to see was James Acaster. However, the problem with his character is, again, down to the writers. His talents in comedy are kind of wasted and underutilized as they don't really give him many funny lines. Many of the comedic lines are instead given to Kumail Nanjiani. Not all of them land, however, there will be some moments of good line delivery from him here and there. 3 of the original Ghostbusters are back. I particularly enjoyed Dan Aykroyd's character. If you've seen some videos he's made in recent years, you'll quickly find that the way his character acts in this movie is essentially how he acts in real life now too. I was surprised to see that Bill Murray isn't in this as much. He has about 2 major scenes, and in fairness, there are times where he can be a delight to see on screen. It's nice to see that he hasn't become jaded and is still completely down to come back for these movies. He always looks like he's having a good time. As I've mentioned a few times, I've been complaining about the writing in this movie. Well, not only can the script barely handle so many characters in here, but it really is flawed in its story. It opts for flat out explaining a lot of things to its audience with a ton of lore and backstory that's really unneeded, and a lot of the major plot points in this film are very predictable. Something happens very early in the movie and I instantly knew it was going to be a way for the characters to beat the villain. It was painfully obvious what was going to happen. The second act and overall mid-section of this film was pretty boring too. There isn't all that much going on in this in the grand scheme of things, which is really makes it uninteresting. Another big problem here is something that surprisingly didn't happen with the first movie, which is supplying the movie with a load of fan service and nostalgia bait. There's many points in the movie where they recreate visual cues and references to the original, and it just gets really tedious. But I shouldn't expect anything less. However, after Afterlife, I definitely expected more, but at the end of the day, we do have to remember this film is made by Sony. Funny enough, there isn't a complete abundance of product placement that's usually present in Sony films, so I guess that's somewhat of an improvement. The CGI in this film ranged from both good and bad. Thankfully, good outweighed the bad. I appreciate that they used parts of the original Slimer puppet to create in this new one. It was really cool to see some of the practical effects, even if they add CGI over the thing. Overall, this film was just disappointing more than anything. Since Sony now has this brand of a Ghostbusters production studio, there's probably going to be a new Ghostbusters project every couple of years. I would maybe like to see this, as there's definitely some ideas they can do with the franchise. I just hope they don't completely make it go up in flames, but this sequel really doesn't make it look bright. I'm giving Ghostbusters Frozen Empire 2.5 stars. It is a painfully boring, fanservice-y ridden sequel that doesn't live up to the expectations of his predecessor. However, there's the occasional fun moments that some people could get out of it more than I ever will.